You would think love could overcome anything, but what happens when betrayal and guilt build a wall so high it feels impossible to climb? This is the story of how our fractured marriage almost broke me and the unexpected twist that changed everything. As my baby grew inside me, the distance between Joseph and me became unbearable. He refused to touch me, let alone share any intimacy. I was no longer his partner. I felt like a stranger, or worse, a shadow lingering in the home we had built together. Every night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how things had gone so horribly wrong. Joseph avoided me at every turn, eating out or surviving on coffee just to avoid sitting at the same table with me. I tried to ignore the pain, but it was impossible. The man who once couldn't go a day without holding me in his arms now acted as if I didn't exist. It wasn't long before the stress took a toll on me. One morning, after another sleepless night spent crying, I felt a wave of dizziness overwhelm me as I tried to prepare breakfast. My legs gave out, and I collapsed on the kitchen floor. Joseph wasn't home. He had left early for work, but thankfully our neighbor, Mrs. Daniels, came by to drop off some groceries she had borrowed the week before. When she knocked and got no response, she grew concerned and let herself in with the spare key I had given her. She found me unconscious on the floor and immediately called for an ambulance. I woke up in the hospital to the sound of machines beeping and a nurse checking my vitals. "Claire," the doctor said when he walked in, his tone serious, "you've been under an incredible amount of stress. It's affecting your health and putting your pregnancy at risk. I'm ordering complete bed rest. You need to take this seriously if you want to carry this baby to term." His words struck fear into my heart, but I couldn't bring myself to tell Joseph. He seemed so detached. I didn't think he'd care. When I came home, my mother decided to visit. She could sense something was wrong the moment she stepped through the door. "Claire, tell me, what's going on between you and Joseph?" she asked, her eyes full of concern. I wanted to tell her everything. The betrayal, the guilt, the cold silence that filled our home. But I couldn't. I still loved Joseph, despite everything, and I didn't want to tarnish his image in her eyes. So I forced a smile and shook my head. "Nothing, Mama. We're just a little stressed, that's all." She didn't believe me, but she didn't push. I watched her leave that evening, my heart aching with the weight of the secrets I was carrying. By the time my pregnancy reached 5 months, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed Joseph. I needed him to see me, to hold me, to remind me that we were still a team. One night, I knelt before him, tears streaming down my face.
If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more emotional and relatable experiences, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell.
"Joseph," I begged, my voice breaking. "Please, I need you. My body is changing, and I feel so alone. Please, just hold me." He stared at me, his own eyes brimming with tears. For a moment, I thought he might finally let his walls down, but instead, he turned and walked away, leaving me broken on the floor. That night, I cried myself to sleep again. I didn't know that Joseph was in the bathroom, sobbing just as hard. I didn't know that he was fighting a war within himself, torn between his love for me and the guilt he couldn't shake. In that tiny bathroom, Joseph made a decision. He looked at himself in the mirror, his voice barely above a whisper. "This is my child," he said to his reflection. "It doesn't matter what happened. This is my child, and I will be the man Claire needs." He repeated those words over and over, until he finally believed them. When he came out of the bathroom, I was lying in bed, my back turned to the empty space beside me. Joseph climbed into bed and gently wrapped his arms around me. At first, I thought I was dreaming. It had been months since he'd touched me, and the feeling was almost foreign. But as his arms tightened around me, I felt a flicker of hope. We didn't say a word. We didn't need to. That night, for the first time in months, we reconnected. It wasn't just physical. It was emotional, spiritual. The walls between us began to crumble, brick by brick. The next morning, I woke to the smell of food. Joseph was in the kitchen, humming a tune as he prepared breakfast. When he brought the tray to me in bed, I could hardly believe my eyes. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "I've been so caught up in my guilt that I forgot what really matters. You, us, this baby." I stared at him, tears streaming down my face. "I don't just accept this baby," he continued. "This baby is mine. You are my wife, and I know you would never betray me. So, as far as I'm concerned, this child is ours." I couldn't hold back anymore. I threw my arms around him, sobbing into his chest. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you for coming back to me." For the first time in months, I felt like the nightmare was finally over. But I didn't know then that the storm wasn't finished with us yet. After that night of reconnection, Joseph became a completely different man. He was attentive, caring, and supportive in ways I hadn't seen in months. He prepared my meals, helped with household chores, and even began talking to my growing belly, calling the baby our little miracle. For the first time in a long time, I felt like we were healing. His love gave me the strength to push through the emotional scars and focus on the joy of becoming a mother. When the day finally came, Joseph held my hand through the labor, whispering words of encouragement as I brought our baby into the world. The moment I heard the first cry, tears of joy streamed down both our faces. "It's a girl," the doctor announced, placing her in my arms. I had never felt such overwhelming love. Joseph kissed my forehead, his eyes filled with pride and gratitude. "She's beautiful," he whispered. "Just like her mother." I thought our nightmare was finally over. Joseph dotted on our daughter, who we named Grace, and showered me with love and affection. I began to believe that we had truly left the past behind, but 2 weeks after bringing Grace home, a letter arrived in the mail. At first, I thought it was just another card congratulating us on the birth, but when I opened it, my heart sank. The note was handwritten, and the words felt like a dagger to my chest. "Congratulations on the baby. Is it a boy or a girl? I hope she looks like me. Marcus." I froze, the paper trembling in my hands. My mind raced as I clutched the letter, trying to process the weight of his words. How did Marcus know the baby had been born? Was he watching us? And what did he mean by "she looks like me"? I felt the walls closing in, the happiness I had fought so hard to rebuild crumbling in an instant. Joseph walked into the room, smiling as he held Grace in his arms. I quickly hid the letter, unsure of how or if I should tell him. The storm we thought was behind us wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning. Marcus, the so-called friend who offered my husband the business deal, but only after spending a night with me, has resurfaced. His chilling letter has shaken the fragile peace we've worked so hard to rebuild. What does he want now, and how will this impact our family? Stay tuned to find out what happens next. You don't want to miss this. Make sure to like the video and hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell.